and welcome to New Game Plus. My name is Donald. I am joined by Megan on this very special episode.
It's good to be back for episode 250. I actually can't believe it.
That is like 50 cents blood in the sands in one episode.
In the club, yeah, what's up? Party, where's my party hat? We have no celebrations, we're doing this wrong.
No, we really are, aren't we?
Yeah.
There's no tears, there's no look back, there's no flashbacks. It's business as usual here because video games are a busy time, aren't they?
Always. We've just come off the back of E3 and we're sort of reveling in all the releases and all the juicy news about what the industry is up to now, but we have the standard panels and reviews back here in New Game Plus.
Things just keep on going. The state of video games just keeps on driving forward. There will always be another Warriors game.
But many things to discuss.
Yes. There are so many Warriors games, and indeed, Jason, Matt, and Shane all get together and discuss that in this very episode.
Yes.
We also get ourselves some updates on the state of loot crates. That's something that didn't exist back when we started New Game Plus.
It's a pretty controversial topic, the loot crate discussion, and when games really implement them successfully or not so much.
What do you consider a successful loot crate implementation?
Where they don't blindly rob me of all my cash just to have a shiny gun and a nice knife.
But I don't know. Really want that shiny skin though. I need to collect all the Tracer and Mercy skins because
look, I'm all about the World of Warcraft mounts, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna just
wowzers, that's an expensive thing.
Make it rain, whatever it costs.
Those things aren't cheap either.
But they're so pretty.
They are pretty, but they're also, I don't know that, but that's an entirely different discussion altogether.
It is.
We also review State of Decay 2.
Yes, that's another game that's just slid under the radar this year, but it should be really great to hear all about it.
That and more coming up in this episode of New Game Plus, so let's get straight into it.
Sit back and enjoy.
Now, Koei Tecmo is a big company known for a lot of different interesting games like DOA and Ninja Gaiden. They make a lot of games called Musou. They make a lot of Warriors games, Dynasty Warriors games, you probably know them by in the West. And there's a lot of them that have just recently released, or in the last kind of year or so, on the Switch. So we figured we'd get together, discuss which is the best Musou game for the Switch. I brought along Cardi and I brought along Shaney to discuss that. Suddenly the Switch has appeared and it's got, what we've got, the main ones that I can think of, because I've been playing it, is Pirate Warriors. So that's One Piece Pirate Warriors 3. Which is technically made by Namco Bandai, but it's made by Koei Tecmo, who made it. Similar thing to the game you're discussing, which is Hyrule Warriors. Or what Hyrule Warriors Definitive, what are they calling it now?
Yeah, so it's Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition, which has just recently come out on Switch. It's fantastic as well in the sense that its release schedule as well as its DLC releases it was kind of a little bit strange in the sense that
that was the 3DS and the Wii era, yeah.
Absolutely. So there was a 3DS game or a 3DS release that got staggered out. There was exclusive content, and a lot of people got confused as to what content was exclusive to which console platform. Now it's all come out, all consolidated in one neat little package, and what a nice, awesome game package it is. And it's just brimming with content.
Talking about packages make it weird.
They've also, I'm just adding on to that, they've also got new content. They just didn't just go, old DLC. It's not just definitive in the sense that, it's all the old stuff.
Koei Tecmo are good for that though. When they do extra editions, they always add a little bit more,
yeah,
whether it's free or whatever.
That's named content. That's Empires, that's their, they totally changed
that's
the
true.
game.
They do that as well,
They totally changed the game, where this is just okay, we've got our core base, we've got our DLC. Now we'll also add more to that definitive edition to make it actually worthwhile than, if you've just played those ones previously.
We've just made the point that there's all these games that are very similar and play very similar, made by similar companies. What differentiates them? And I guess the main one is obviously, of course, the fact that they are nearly always a specific anime or a specific fandom has a Musou game, and it has its own unique twist on it.
It's even though some of the core mechanics are very much the same, Y and light heavy combos basically. Light heavy combos. Every one of the Musou games have that light heavy combos, and
YYX, XYY.
Yeah, and some sort of special move and stuff like that. But basically, post that, everyone has a different style. You've got your Hyrule Warriors, which has got a lot of the sub-item stuff, which is very, very important for a lot of the bosses and stuff like that. It's also got a lot of different characters that feel totally different, and even the grinding is very much different. It's based on the weapons as well as other the character-specific stuff. Their grinding and I guess the I guess, mechanics in
Yeah.
a sense are very much totally different and make the game
Unique to its
very-
own game.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
It can be condensed into one thing, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, but gimmicks. So a lot of the games in particular, like even Attack on Titan, which is kind of a Musou-like in a sense.
I'd
Narrow
argue
bridging
against
it.
that.
Same thing as well as like Knights of Azure, very
Yeah.
very proto-Musou type game.
Yeah.
Games like Fire Emblem Warriors, they'll have stuff like the permadeath mechanic,
Yeah.
as well as there's a lot of weapons grinding which differentiates it, as well as kind of makes things a little bit similar
Yeah.
to a lot of Musou fans in particular.
It either takes something from the realm of like the actual universe that it's taken from, or a specific mechanic, especially if it's borrowing from the game.
Well,
So-
it's true to the identity of the actual game itself, to the mythos, to the mechanics as well. It feels almost like a love letter in certain regards. So I feel that it doesn't feel. I guess gimmick is the worst word for it, but I feel that it's a
would
bit
say-
of representation for that particular game.
I would say instead of gimmicky, mechanic-y. Weird word, but hey.
It's not even a
not a
word.
word. It's
No,
not a
but I
word.
mean, like it's more than just a gimmick. A gimmick feels like it's just something that
It's
was
there, it's
thrown
there,
in,
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of added. This was almost like you've got this core concept here, which is your Warriors game. You've also got this core concept here, which is the other universe, and it's kind of almost a meld in between
Yeah,
two.
yeah.
At its core, most of these particular games are essentially spin-offs or crossovers to it. I mean, just take a look. Warriors Orochi as well,
Yeah.
for example, or meshes Dynasty, Samurai Warriors, and a couple of other people into
Random
the mix,
friend-
like
yeah,
guest
yeah.
characters. That's fantastic. It's good stuff. It's almost like imagine like Ayane fighting against or like
Yeah,
fighting
that's
against
well,
a
that's
bunch of
Warriors
demons
All
and stuff.
Stars as well. So,
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess the question becomes: Fire Emblem Warriors worth playing?
Fire Emblem Warriors, I personally, it's one that I'd say is the weaker of a lot of them.
Yes.
Like the main mechanic of Warriors was basically the weapons. That felt a little bit weak in the Fire Emblem Warriors game.
Same thoughts. Yeah.
It's more that like it didn't actually matter that much.
Well,
So it felt.
even if you did in particular, you could sit there and just keep juggling
Yeah.
people.
Whereas
so,
whereas
yeah.
something like Hyrule Warriors, where you've got these actually massive like enemy beasts.
Progression things that actually block. Yeah.
You've got to actually use those sub weapons to actually impact the damage that you do. Otherwise, it's basically just futile.
So Hyrule Warriors worth a look?
Yeah, I mean, the characters are all very diverse in that sense as well, compared to Fire Emblem, where it's like, oh god, we're playing as another lord again. Whereas with Hyrule Warriors in particular, it has its very specific
Linkle.
niche. It has Linkle too. Everyone's all in one neat little game card, so that's great. I think everyone else in particular with Hyrule Warriors, I feel it's a far more diverse experience for
It's a little bit easier, but I think that's also a good thing as well. Coming from like One Piece Warriors, where it's a more traditional experience, you can actually lose. You can actually think, like the time I've played with Hyrule, you don't really have that problem. One Piece has a mechanic where all the nakama come out and help you, and you build up the supers with them. You do all your supers together, which is great. But it is a Musou game. Like, let's be real. If you're a One Piece fan, you're going to enjoy it. If you're the Zelda fans are the ones pushing the force towards Hyrule. It's the Fire Emblem fans pushing towards Fire Emblem. It's the One Piece fans pushing towards this. They're all pretty good games. I would say that I agree with your assessment. Hyrule and One Piece are the two strongest ones out there at the moment. Thank you, Shane.
Always.
Can't wait to see what you have for us next time.
It's been about 6 months since the Lootbox issue popped up in the gaming scene. Last we checked, Star Wars Battlefront 2 and Middle-earth Shadow of War were facing heavy criticism for their Lootbox implementation, and this had got the attention of lawmakers around the world. So, what's the current fate of loot crates? Let's navigate the state of play and separate the sinners and saints in this, the Loot Crate Update. Brought to you by Colgate. Now with added nitrates, so now you can better masticate grapes with a date or 8 mates. Let's start with Star Wars Battlefront 2, the poster child of this entire situation. Remember when the day before launch, developers DICE suspended the in-game microtransactions? Well, if you don't, they did that. Anyway, in March, DICE announced that it was revamping the game's progression, which would remove gameplay-altering items from loot crates, replacing them with cosmetic items and in-game credits to purchase them. It's basically what people were asking for leading up to launch, the removal of the pay-to-win and the ability to play as a hot pink stormtrooper. Having said that, it feels a little too late for this game. Sure, it sold 9 million copies, but I reckon at least half of these are currently sitting in pre-owned bins at your local game retailer. And generally, people aren't talking about this game, this ostensibly ongoing game, outside of lootbox memes on Reddit and satirical news monologues on community television and youtube.com/newgameplusTV. Like, comment, and subscribe. The other lootbox culprit, Middle-earth Shadow of War, has gone one step further and removed microtransactions altogether. In a candid post, developer Monolith admitted that the ability to purchase in-game orcs, quote, risked undermining the heart of our game, the Nemesis system, and that it compromises those same stories even if you don't buy anything. Fair play to Monolith. They were open about the problem and the incoming solution. Now all we need is a similar apology from Peter Jackson for stretching The Hobbit into 3 movies. It seems these games made changes at the right time because lawmakers around the world are starting to step in. Which brings us to Belgium, home of waffles, and many Belgians keen to remind us that Belgium is more than just waffles. They really waffle on about that point. Belgium was one of the earliest countries to publicly announce a review into the potential link between loot boxes and gambling. And in April, the nation's Gaming Commission identified 3 games that fell under its gambling laws: Overwatch, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, and FIFA 18. Now, I for one am shocked to hear soccer associated with illicit gambling. This has never, ever happened in the history of the sport. Ever. The loot boxes in these titles were determined to be, under gambling law, games of chance that drew players in with an emotional profit forecast, which, by the way, is a really good name for a corporate punk band. The Commission was also concerned that these games appeared to target minors. Now, these 3 games must either remove or alter their loot boxes, otherwise they may be dealt with under Belgian criminal law. This could mean 5 years imprisonment and a fine of 800,000 euros. That kind of money could buy you so many waffles. So expect a very exciting E3 press conference from EA, where it will announce that it will replace FIFA Ultimate Team with a brand new and exciting mode, FIFA Battle Royale. 100 soccer players are placed onto a pitch. The last one to take an intentional dive wins. Average game length, 12 seconds. Over in America, Hawaii is writing a bill to regulate loot boxes, and lawmakers in Washington state are also looking into whether loot boxes fall under its gaming laws. The gaming industry does not want the government to step in, and so the industry-run Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or the ESRB, has intervened by slapping labels onto games that have in-game purchases, including loot boxes. In 2018, that is literally every video game. It's as effective as labeling a packet of cigarettes the words "warning contains cigarettes," or every Drake album with "warning contains sadness." Mind you, the ESRB still holds the view that loot boxes do not constitute gambling. In a letter to a US senator, the ESRB believed that loot boxes were analogous to baseball cards and that they, quote, provide a player a fun way to acquire virtual items for use within the game. Loot boxes are fun, aren't they? I mean, just look at Kriparian as he is opening up 1,000 Hearthstone packs. Now, isn't he having the time of his life? And that will do it for this edition of the Loot Crate Update. Tune in next time as the industry negotiates with reps of states to abate a mandate to regulate the loot crates. Save the date. And that is everything that has happened in the world, ever.
So there's always lots of divisive discussions amongst communities about, movies or books, or in this case, anime. Naruto's garbage. Besides that, though, we are talking about Sword Art Online specifically, a series that has a big fandom, but also a big, I want to call it an anti-fandom. And we're discussing the video game Sword Art Online, Gunglaive Online, I don't know what it's called, but Shane will, and I'm going to introduce him now. Shaney.
Gale Online was
Online.
It's the VMMO of the second season of the anime, which is the season that I never want to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, let's actually start off with that. To start it. All right. First half of first season, good. Second half of first season, it was probably bad. I'm going to go bad. Second season, first half of second season is meh, probably, and then second half of second season is bad.
Thank you. That's an anime review over?
That's anime review over. Okay, let's get into the game. So Sword Art Online, Gale Online, VMMO kind of stuff. You have your own OC, you have your own waifu OC basically.
But that sounds like it makes sense in Sword Art Online world. Do you know what I mean? Like, I guess the concept seems like it could work.
Like the AI character is one that's basically you can instantly like change the personality and change the looks and stuff like that. There's also the childhood friend waifu that is like just for this game kind of thing. Then they bring in the extra characters, which are the main story characters that it just ruined the whole game. Just let's go with like not just to throw them out. The cutscenes, just skip them. The game itself is actually surprisingly fun.
So I guess the first comparison that comes to mind is Dot Hack. Dot Hack had the opposite problem, where the story maintained a really good balance of its own thing and what it was trying to do, but the gameplay was pretty crap. Is that's a fair?
That's a fair thing, and I'd say that actually even the anime actually brought something to the game, because the anime of that was actually it was co-developed. It was like one-to-one kind of. You watched one, then you played the other, and it kind of connected. Like this, it's kind of totally disconnected to the anime itself, except there's characters that, you know.
Yeah, so it's basically, unlike, say, Attack on Titan, where they seem to integrate OC really well, and they make you part of, they just go, we'll make you part of the story, and then here's this side quest you can do that weren't covered.
It's basically our original story, where you're thrown into the story and stuff like that. There's a few elements that this game does really well, like they bring in some of the VMO kind of style that they actually had, like, so you can see, like, the bullet line is a thing that they introduced in the anime.
Basically, so again, a lot of the gameplay stuff works because it fits.
Yeah, you can see where you're actually, like, the enemy's actually shooting and then dodge. There's also like the assist system, which works when you're just running and gunning.
Yep.
There's a few really cool like things that they brought in from the like outside source, and they worked really, really well. And the grinding is actually surprisingly fun. But you can't actually get to that for like the first 20 minutes, because the first 20 minutes is just annoying cutscenes.
So I guess the question becomes, if you can get past the tutorials and you get past all the story elements and stuff that you don't like, is it still worth playing?
Okay, if you don't have access to Dot Hack, then sure, maybe. And if you like a grind, sure, maybe. And if you like the SAO like story and everything, universe, sure, maybe. If all of those are not ticked, I would say no.
Okay.
But like some of them tick, okay, let's go. You like a grind and you like the SAO, yes, you'll probably like this. If you don't have Dot Hack and you like a grind, sure, maybe we'll pick this up when it's a little bit cheaper. But it's just...
What a ringing endorsement that is. One of those games that came out a few years ago that I guess really snuck onto my radar was State of Decay. It was this game by Undead Labs. It was a Microsoft kind of in-house deal, but was it? It wasn't sure. But it was a budget title that came out. It was around the zombie time where every game had zombies in some capacity, and it really kind of just came in with the wave. Yet the one thing that stood out to me was how well they managed to balance both the zombie world and the mechanics. It didn't have the fun factor and the over-the-top ostentatiousness of a Dead Rising, but it still had a little bit of that. But it also managed to nail a lot of the survival elements that a lot of these other games had kind of ignored. State of Decay 2 comes out, another feature of the Xbox Game Pass, and it's a fantastic continuation of the series. Be it just a little bit, suffering the same issues that the original game had. Basically, the premise of the story is zombies have taken over the world. Blah, 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 as per usual, as is the premise of a zombie game. You play as one of two you've got two pairs of people that you can choose from. You have 4 different pairs that you can pick. And each one offers a different kind of both personality characteristic and physical characteristic. So some may be particularly strong, some may be particularly witty, whatever the case may be, or they'll have a particular set of skills that you can use to build your particular base or like to build your community. Over time, you go through your tutorial, you're at a military base. From that point onwards, it's basically you start to build a little community. You find survivors in the world. You find different people to trade with. You take over outposts to build the abilities of your different communities and also to offer you some kind of respite areas amongst the different areas of the world. And as you spread across, the actual main game of the idea of the game is to build a legacy. So whoever you pick as your sheriff or your main character will have a different legacy to pass on to the world. And that is how you actually go about completing the game, which I think is a fantastic way to handle a game like this. I mean, how do you set an endpoint on a game where things are randomly generated, You know, all these different events are happening. There's 3 or 4 different maps to choose from when it comes to actually picking what map you're setting your camps in. So it really does add that nice little twist to it. Then those characters can also be used as legacy characters once you start a new community. So it's a really fantastic way to do this kind of game. The only thing is a little bit clunky and a little bit, how do I say it delicately? There's some bugs, just a couple. So sometimes you'll find that for whatever reason, the companion you're with will get caught somewhere. Sometimes you'll find, you know, like zombies will just randomly appear out of nowhere. Like the way that it actually does zombie patterns seems to be very random. Like sometimes you'll just be at your base and suddenly all these zombies will show up. And yes, there is an alert meter at your base, and that's probably another part of the game that we should really go into detail in a sec. But the bugs are still there. They're different than they were, and it can be a little bit clunky when you're both driving and when you're fighting, but it still nails what it's trying to do. At no point does it feel so unplayable or so broken that it's not enjoyable. And building a community in itself has been great fun. You know, rationalizing whether you need a workshop over an infirmary, or, you know, do you increase the farms you have, or do you go and find a way to bring power to your base for the cost of, you know, X amount of fuel per day kind of thing, in order to build specific, you know, facilities and utilities in your base, is fantastic. Not to mention balancing the skills of your survivors. So all of your survivors have 5 main skills: cardio, you know, fighting, running, that kind of thing. So it really, there's always the last slot. So giving them some kind of special skill helps build your base. You want, obviously, as wide a spread of skills as you can to have the best access to all the facilities. And over time, you'll start to move your bases and build different things. And honestly, I've played like at least 100 hours of it at the moment, and I get the feeling that I'm just going to keep playing it and starting new bases. Add on the fact that it's 4-player co-op and you can jump into people's worlds and help them out for like currency in game and items and things like that. And it really is just the quintessential zombie game made perfect, polished up, not polished perfectly, but polished up a lot, and turned into what is going to be probably one of the longest standing zombie games for all time. Plus, it's on Game Pass, plus it's a budget title. Fantastic value for money and definitely worth a look.
Now, much has been said about State of Decay 2, and particularly the bugs that game had on launch.
Really? Tell me more.
Yeah, it's just all sorts of things happening, but at the same time, like, these are, like, by the time that this goes to air, a lot of those bugs may or may not have been fixed, so
let's hope.
It's a weird thing with the games that are coming out, like, they come out kind of broken, but they take their time to eventually get better. Like,
that hurts me so much.
Yeah,
like, that pattern shouldn't be happening still.
It shouldn't.
Like, why does that happen?
Because we got way too excited for No Man's Sky, that's
Sea
why.
of Thieves was bad.
Yeah.
That happened as well. It was glitchy as when it came out, and I'm hoping there are a bit patches now.
Yeah, but like, it is, like, that sort of thing was still at least functional. You've had some pretty bad experiences with the bugs, haven't you, Meg?
There was this one time at PAX like 3 years ago where it was a Left 4 Dead 2 was coming out, and there was this like closed off LAN area where everyone was allowed to play the demo, and it kept breaking for every single player, and the staff that were working the booth were just like, just go. Like, don't worry about it.
Take your keychain and go away.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't
really
for Left 4
bad.
Dead 2, it was for like something else though, wasn't it?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure it was that.
It was like the fact that the bugginess was so memorable, and
Yeah.
not the game itself, probably speaks volumes about it,
Hectic.
doesn't
That game
it?
actually never released, so
Oh.
it is what it is.
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to necessarily improve, because we are still in the days of, like, say, games that have to connect to the internet, and you're always going to have like day one crashes where everyone tries to bombard the server.
I'm okay with server crashes, like that's fine, but when it's things that it should have been ironed out in development, or even like, people shouldn't even like announce release dates for games anymore. I think if they're gonna not release it when it's perfect, they should wait.
Like, just push it endlessly?
Yeah.
Like, you're happy to wait
Forever.
until 2025 to play, I don't know, the Division 3 or something like that?
I'll do what I've got to do.
Yeah. We're going to keep on waiting and waiting. We won't keep you waiting, though, for another episode of New Game Plus next week. Thank you very much for watching. Until that point, though, if you want to watch more New Game Plus, we are online at www.newgameplus.tv.
All the socials, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook.
On New Game Plus
Twitter.
TV, one word, no spaces. Thank you very much, Megan.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you, viewer, next week. Hello and welcome to New Game Plus.
Sorry, stop. Can you start again? Sorry, Max, what the fuck are you doing? She's like, oh,